This is an ABC News special report. The mystery of Flight 370.
And good morning, I'm Josh Elliott. We do have breaking news this morning in the search for the missing jumbo jet. Flight 370, the Malaysian Prime Minister is holding a surprise press conference. Let's go there now.
Accidents Investigation Branch, or AAIB. They inform me that Inmarsat, the UK company that provided the satellite data, which indicated the northern and southern corridors, has been performing further calculations on the data using a type of analysis never before used in an investigation of this sort. They have been able to shed more light on MH370's flight path. Based on their new analysis, Inmarsat and the AAIB have concluded that MH370 flew along the southern corridor and that its last position was in the middle of the Indian Ocean, west of Perth. This is a remote location, far from any possible landing site. It is therefore with deep sadness and regret that I must inform you that according to this new data, flight MH370 ended in the southern Indian Ocean. We will be holding a press conference tomorrow with further details. In the meantime, we wanted to inform you of this new development at the earliest opportunity. We share this information out of a commitment to openness and respect for the families, two principles which have guided this investigation. Malaysia Airlines have already spoken to the families of the passengers and crew to inform them of this development. For them, the past few weeks have been heartbreaking. I know this news must be hard as steel. I urge the media to respect their privacy and allow them the space they need at this very difficult time.
Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak holding a surprise press conference. It is 10 p.m. in Kuala Lumpur to say that based on satellite information gleaned by satellites, that there is confirmation that no one on board Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 has survived. What they did not say is that any debris or wreckage related to the plane itself has yet been found. He did also say that there would be a press conference tomorrow detailing more what they knew and obviously how they came to know it. But we do want to turn now to ABC's David Curley. David, now you've been tracking the story from the very beginning. Two arcs, David, of course, became one. He confirmed as well that it was that southern corridor where this plane did fly, well off the coast, the southwest coast of Perth, as we see there. And we see these two search areas. Now, David, debris could have drifted as far as 700 miles to the west of that second area there. So based on what we just heard, again, with no plane or wreckage, footage. What does it tell us, at least about how they came to identify the southern corridor as the one this traveled?
Well, we've known that the satellites, they've been able to refine some of that data. And so what we've been told by U.S. officials now for more than a week that it was off Australia. And now with this refinement, what the Malaysians have just done is said, listen, this plane crashed in the southern Indian Ocean and nobody survived. This was an effort to give some closure to the families in Beijing and elsewhere who had, including 3 Americans who were on this aircraft, that this is a lost aircraft and every soul on board was lost. So that's why the Malaysians came out and said this, that this additional satellite data, the refinement of it, tells us that this plane crashed in the southern Indian Ocean. Now, back to the debris, and this is very important, Josh. This is the area that they're looking for the debris, and there were a lot of spottings of debris today because we have all these aircraft now. We have 10 aircraft that are searching this area, and it is now dark there, and there is a ship in this area now, and the Malaysians are hoping that by tomorrow they might be able to actually pick up a piece of debris and say, here is part of Flight 370. But it has drifted so far, 300 to 700 miles away, we're not going to find the aircraft there. The way we find the aircraft is by going back to the 2 last flight paths that have been plotted from that satellite data. And what we are hoping that as they refine it, we get to one area where they think this flight actually impacted the ocean, and then they will make a grid over that area and start using those underwater little subs and sonar that you can drag through the water to start listening for that pinger, because we are going to be running out of batteries in a couple of weeks.
Again, David, as that search has now become refined, we do want to also bring in ABC News aviation consultant Colonel Stephen Ganyard in Washington. And Steve, you made it clear this morning, even before that press conference, that the first and arguably most important part of this search is now complete, and that is providing the families of those lost 239 souls with a sense of closure, again, as we look to identify where this plane did go down and how it did in fact crash. But this moment now, having provided that moment to those families of the 239 people on board, what next then what's the next step in this search, Steve?
Josh, the one thing that I heard from the Prime Minister that gives me hope, and we need to track this down, is that there may be some new data from Inmarsat, the company that runs the satellite constellation that originally gave us these 2 arcs. There may be some new data that gives us a little bit more precise information. As you say, we now have closure for the families. The debris search is not as important anymore. What we need to do now is get to the black boxes. And remember that the airplane was on this southerly heading, and it went into the water, and after it hit the water, there was some debris that floated, and it floated off to the east for 700 miles perhaps. But at the bottom of the ocean where that airplane impacted is where most of the human remains are going to be and where the black boxes are. And as we've been saying for weeks now, the only way to solve this mystery is to get to those black boxes. So I'm encouraged that potentially we may have new information from Inmarsat that will allow us to refine where that aircraft went in. Because to find it in the bottom of the ocean is if we thought it was finding the debris was hard, finding it on the bottom of the ocean is going to be at least twice as hard. So just hoping that something good is going to come out of what we're hearing today.
So the technical part really has just begun. We also want to bring in ABC's Gloria Riviere. She is in Beijing. That, of course, the original destination for Flight 370. She has been with the families of those souls on board the flight. Gloria, their reaction this morning or this evening there in Beijing was what?
Josh, it's been dramatic here at the Lida Hotel in Beijing. We're getting reports. ABC News has been inside the room where families are. One woman at least fainting, being put on a stretcher, crying, screaming. This location, of course, since March 8th, where the families have been keeping hope alive. The news today confirming their worst fears. One woman telling ABC News she received the information from Malaysian officials in an email in English. And just as this press conference was beginning to happen, families were still coming down from the hotel rooms, entering a room to be together where they have been together for so many days, demanding answers that just didn't come, praying for the best, bracing for the worst. that worse news for them coming this evening. Josh?
All right, Gloria Rivera there in Beijing. I also want to bring in David Wright. He was a member of one of the searches. He actually rode along with that sub-Hunter plane that the U.S. Navy had provided now. David, there at search headquarters, there are obviously so many emotions to pick through at this point, but what's the feeling there now that at least there's a sense that they have honed in on where that plane perhaps precisely went down?
But we've been out on 2 of these missions, Josh, and all along the search teams have told us that they're determined to provide some answers here. That said, as Steve and David were saying, this is a huge area to cover. The search area here that they've covered in the southern corridor alone is bigger than the state of California. And if you can imagine what it's like out there, flying low across the ocean, next time you're in your car, look out the side window and watch the world rushing by. Now, these planes are going 200 miles an hour, 250 feet above the water in very poor visibility. It's been very difficult to spot debris, and they've been concerned that possibly they've passed by it. Now that there is a sense of what happened here, I think, and all day we've been getting reports from these planes that there has been some debris found in the water, not clear if it's connected with the plane. Now that there are some answers, I think you'll see the information start to flow faster. That said, as Steve said, as difficult as the search has been until now, it's going to become even more difficult to go under the water and find the heavy wreckage that may lie below.
Hard to imagine. David, right there in Perth. I do want to also bring in ABC's Bob Woodruff. He was at the press conference this evening there in Kuala Lumpur. And Bob, Malaysian officials have been heavily criticized at times for the length of this search and the sense that perhaps there was intentional obfuscation on their part. But now the Prime Minister steps to the podium and again provides arguably the most important part of this search, that being closure for the families of those souls lost on board. What was the reaction there in Kuala Lumpur?
Yeah, Josh, absolutely. That was the word closure is probably the best way to put it. You know, I did have a chance yesterday to talk a wonderful family, the Chief Steward's family. You know, Patrick was. They told us from the very beginning the most important thing to them is not that the plane is found. It's just that those in that plane, their future is well known. Are they alive or did they pass away? And no matter what, I mean, this great wife that we talked to, the mother of all these children, were with us, and she put a candle right in their room, burning it without stopping it for the last 16 days, hoping that if it's his soul, then he would find his way home. So possibly this is the chance for this. All these other ones we were with in this hotel just a minute ago, right before this began, this talk, they were given a text right before that happened to tell them what was happening. The families just wanted to know this answer. Terrible news, but at least now they can begin that closure that you mentioned.
Indeed, so much heartbreak that has become real. And again, Bob Woodruff there in Kuala Lumpur. We will hear again from the Prime Minister tomorrow. Quickly, David Curley, you're sitting here with now the thing that everyone is really looking for. That, of course, the black box. It'll ping for how much longer and how close they have to be?
They have to be within a mile or two to hear this, and this is the pinger out here, and it makes a little ticking sound like a metronome. That's the sound right there that you're hearing, and that's exactly what they'll be listening for. You know, we call them black boxes. They're orange so you can see them. Inside is a little disc that has all the flight data on it that will answer so many questions that we don't have answers for as of right now.
Coming within a mile in a search area larger than the state of California.
It's a daunting task.
It's very daunting. Thank you, David Curley. Thank you, of course, David right there in Perth, Gloria Rivera in Beijing, Bob Woodruff in Kuala Lumpur. We're going to return now to regular programming in some parts of the country. That is Good Morning America, and a complete wrap-up tonight on World News with Diane Sawyer. All the news at abc.com. I'm Josh Elliott. Have a good day.
This has been a special report from ABC News.